a neurotypical brain is kind of like, you think about like a soundboard or a mixer, right? You can adjust the different channels up and down to get more volume on what you want, less on what you don't. Neurotypical brains do this automatically. An ADHD brain, everything's just turned up. And people with ADHD have an interest-based nervous system, where most people have an importance-based nervous system. So you prioritize that and get that thing done. For people with ADHD and other neurodivergent people, because we have this interest-based nervous system, it is super hard to actually do the boring thing. I was always kind of a very student, like not great, not awful, but not great. And when I started getting really good grades, it kind of was like a drug, right? I was like, ooh, I got like all A's and a B this month. Like, can I do this again? Like in grad school, I finished with a 4.0. Like, and at the time that was like, I looked at that as this huge accomplishment.
Right.
In retrospect, when I think about, well, what did it actually take me to be able to do that? I was sleeping 2 hours a night, maybe. Like it was so unhealthy. And I realized that I had kind of done that in my adult life as well. And I just got to this point where it's like the work that I do to me is so important because I do ADHD coaching and I do a lot of group stuff. My primary way of marketing is through my podcast, ADHD Rewired. And during COVID, like everyone and their mother started an ADHD podcast. So suddenly the stuff that like I had built and scaled and was going, wonderfully, now all of a sudden there was like the marketplace for ADHD coaching got very crowded. And, the ADHD podcast landscape got very crowded. And so I was having to put in all this extra work and I wasn't getting the same results from it. It was a very inconvenient time to be burnt out. And you ignore that long enough and it's like, life's going to kind of tell you to stop. Right. And so I kind of went through that and was burning out really, really bad. And I know if I were to try to continue this way, even for another year, that'll be it. I'll be done. And now I'm like, how about let's focus on the excitement of energy sustainability, which doesn't sound as sexy, but like the go, this hustle culture, it's so toxic.
This is interesting. I feel like I'm getting a chance to just sort of sit inside your mind a little bit here.
Great.
And hear how you sort of, reckoned with many of these things that have gone on. Can you give me an idea, like where did this idea of a dopamine menu come from?
So it kind of came out organically. I was having a conversation with Jessica McCabe from How to ADHD. And we were talking about like ways that we combat boredom. All right. And I've always been kind of into wordplay and really bad dad jokes. And it kind of just came out like that. It was basically, I was doing some wordplay. And she's like, oh, that's really good. And she really liked it. And so that's kind of, it was the origin of the idea of the dopamine menu. Because this idea of, it's like, we don't want to go to the grocery store hungry. Right. So it's sort of this idea of, like when we're bored, like that's not the time to think about what we want to do. Like, because otherwise we're just going to grab our phones and, scroll for way longer than we meant to.
So what is it? Is it an actual menu?
Yeah. So it's kind of like a creative project meets sort of list of strategies to use. It's in some ways it's like a portion of a self-care plan. So we have everything from like our appetizers to, which is like the little things, what are some examples? Going for a quick walk or having a snack or, putting some music on or, I don't know, lighting a candle, like just little things like that are kind of pretty low effort, but still can be helpful. Or adding things. So, all right, so you're doing the dishes, you're cooking, put on a podcast, right? Or, things like that just add a little bit more stimulation for the brain.
And how different is this person to person? Is it everyone come up with their own menu?
Absolutely. It's actually cool. I did I was doing some searches online and I just put in, dopamine menu and then an image search, and I actually came up. There's a lot of people who have posted their own dopamine menus, and I've seen some really, really cool versions of this. And then one of the things that I've done on my own dopamine menu is I'll also put in like seasonality. I'll put in like how much sort of dopamine that particular activity tends to deliver for me. Right. So I typically will rate it between 1 to 5. So it's like, you'll see it like, like a menu, right? It's like it's priced by the, how much you think. I even have on there desserts, which are kind of like the anti-dopamine. It's like grabbing your phone to just scroll on social media, drinking, drugging, those kinds of things. The things that are not healthy, right? Like watching another episode of whatever show you have on Netflix, right? Like we're trying to stimulate our brain, but like there's a net loss. I think that's also an important thing to consider. Like when we're taking like a break from work, right? So we're stressed, whatever. We've been at it for a while. So let's say we hop on to whatever our social media, channel of choice is. And sure, maybe that gives us a sort of a +1 on our dopamine.
Right.
Except transitioning and stopping, which are executive functions, costs you 2.
Huh.
Right? It's kind of thinking about like, oh, wait, yeah, that is actually not worth it. Like, good at the time.
That's really interesting. Because when I first read about this, I thought to myself, look, we have a pretty good idea of what makes us feel good. Comfort foods, desserts, doom scrolling, maybe that doesn't make us feel good. But, cluster watching television or binge watching television, whatever. But at the same time, you take it the extra step to say, okay, we realize that may give you a +1, but what is the cost of that as well? That has to fit into the menu.
Absolutely. I'm actually pulling mine up. So I can. So I have, for my appetizers, I have eat lunch away from the desk. I have play a Fish jam. I'm a big fan of the band Fish. I've seen them like 50 times. And,
oh, really?
Listen to a podcast, listen to a TED Talk, go outside, watch YouTube videos on motorcycles. And I actually put a time limit on there as well for 10 to 15 minutes. Guided meditation. Then I have for my entrees, and then I have underneath that says bigger and more satisfying. Pickleball, go for a bike ride, go for a walk on a nice day, playing piano or guitar, listening to great music, play ping pong, motorcycle ride, listen to an audiobook, engage in a new hobby, journaling, drawing, doing something fun with my son, Gibson, getting a massage. And on that, I have a little calendar icon and a dollar icon because, like, some things cost money. Working out, talking to or seeing friends, playing disc golf, gardening, tidying up, which fluctuates for me. Sometimes that it is an aversive task. Sometimes it feels good. So it just kind of depends. Searching for concerts to go see, playing with my cats, learning a new song on piano, reviewing my bucket list, reviewing long-term goals, reviewing my current mission. Because I think it's important to remind yourself of the why often when you have ADHD. Otherwise, you're just doing a task list. And if you're not feeling connected to it, like it's super hard to get really engaged in that. And then I have my desserts, as I mentioned. I have scrolling, video games, sugary treats, staying up late. So those are the things that like aren't great. Yet I tend to, those are things that I will go to. And then I have my specials: concerts, vacations, buying something new, going to a movie, date night, going to a good restaurant, going dancing. And so those are kind of the core parts of my dopamine menu.
That's really interesting. And even when it comes to the desserts, the idea, again, that there are things that you enjoy in the moment, even though you may pay a price later on, too much sugar,
right,
or whatever it might be. Same sort of thing with dopamine.
And I always say, this idea of like everything in moderation, including moderation, right? It's like, yeah, know the cost. If I'm going to be up all night or be up really late and know I'm going to impact my sleep, which can probably affect me for a day or two afterwards, right? I better be doing something that was worth it and not something that I'm just mindlessly online. I want to be going to a concert or something where it's like, oh, I'm going to be feeling that and riding that wave for quite some time. Otherwise, it's not worth it.
People often associate dopamine with a feeling of happiness, of joy even. Was that lacking in someone with ADHD, that you needed more dopamine?
Our brains are under aroused in its natural state.
That's what I'm getting. So that's a new term. Arouse. It's more challenging to arouse your brain if you have ADHD.
Yes.
That's really interesting. I hadn't heard it put like that before.
It's interesting. There's I think in 2012 there was this really cool study that looked at, it was a group composite image of there were hundreds of adults with ADHD that they put under fMRI scans and had them do kind of basic, cognitive, boring types of tasks. And they had in the control group with people without ADHD. And, often people with ADHD have been called lazy. And when we think about lazy is effort. So this image showed, compare the ADHD brain to the non-ADHD brain and the rewarded ADHD brain to the non-rewarded ADHD brain. And what it showed is that the ADHD brain is working profoundly harder, putting in more effort to do basic cognitive tasks that are boring. And sort of the 1-2 punch, we need more sort of like that reward, and we're also less responsive to it. Like it doesn't stick as well, right? There's this like idea I've heard before about like, if you're talking with kids, if a kid's struggling in school, say, hey, if you can get your grades up to this, we'll buy you the new, whatever gaming system. Or if you get your homework in this week, you can choose where we go for dinner. They're all going to choose the gaming system, and like none of them are going to get it because that's way too long of a period of time to do it. And our brain needs frequency of reinforcement to learn.
Was Dopamenu sort of initially a strategy for your ADHD? I mean, or is this something that could be more widely used?
Do you know the concept and the idea of universal design?
Not sure. Tell me.
So I think it can probably best sort of explained with this kind of this little short fable parable where it's snowing really hard, and there's kids who are trying to get into the school, and the maintenance crew they're busy trying to clear off the steps so the kids can get into school, and then there's a kid in a wheelchair, and he says to the maintenance guy, "Can you please do the ramp?" And the maintenance guy says to the kid, "Look, we have all these other kids, like you just have to wait." And then the kid says back to the maintenance guy, well, if you do the ramp, everyone can get into school, including me, right? That's the universal design, right? Thinking, well, and I think that when we look at the strategies for managing ADHD, it's kind of like universal design for life. It's like the people with ADHD, we need to use these strategies, but these are often really great strategies for everybody.
I love that, Eric. Thank you for sharing that. That's really the idea that, again, in this case, everyone can walk up the ramp. The Dopamenu could have benefits for everybody, not just those with ADHD. The idea of writing it down as you did. You have your starters, your appetizers, your entrees, your desserts. How important is it to do that?
I think it's real important. Otherwise, it is just kind of good intentions. And anything that we're planning that has any sort of depth to it, it's sort of like if you looked at a map through a straw, that's how much you can have access to if you don't write it down, right? Write it down. You could see the whole map and view what you want to when you want to, right? Spend that time coming up with the ideas, right? Because you don't want to figure out where you want to go eat when you're already hungry. You're going to the grocery store and you're already hungry, right? It's like you want to have a plan of what you're going to be doing, and when that need kicks in, you have something you can just refer to. Say, oh, this is what I said I was going to do.
How long did it take you to put together? I mean, if someone is hearing this and they're saying, I want to make my own dopamine menu, my Dopamenu.
Yeah, I've done it with one of my online coaching communities. We did it together in about an hour.
So it involves, I imagine, you really taking stock of your life and being really diligent about figuring out what did give you that blast of dopamine. How would you quantify it in some way? How long did it last? What price did you pay to get that sort of blast of dopamine? Am I on the right track?
Yeah, and it's also it's not just like the big things that give you the blast of dopamine. It's kind of like, what are the things that give you sort of that regular sort of dopamine drip, right? The slow release but regular release of dopamine to kind of just increase that just a little bit, to help with the activation, to help with, with motivation, to help with learning even. I mean, that's really what dopamine does.
Do you find that your menu changes?
Oh yeah.
What what may be more beneficial may become less or even more later on in life?
Yeah, I mean it's funny too because I was when I was reviewing mine the other day, and I see that talking to and seeing friends, I was like, well, like I'm a big introvert, like, and I love my alone time. Like this past summer, I did 2 3-night runs at Fish. One was in Wisconsin, the other one was in Indiana. And when I did in Indiana, I rode my motorcycle up by myself, and it was like I loved it. Like just having that, like I don't have to respond to anyone. Like I can just do what I want to do, what I want to do. Like to me, like I love that, and that energizes me. Right. So it's sort of like understanding, oh, like I really need a lot of that alone time to recharge for myself. So when I saw that on my menu, I was like, sometimes I like that.
Interesting.
Other times, not so much.
So you got to create the menu. You've got to allow the menu to be in a little bit of a state of flux. It's got to be able to change.
Well, I think that it's a tool, just like our calendar and our to-do list. It's like just because we captured it and put it in the calendar or the to-do list doesn't mean we have to do it. We can change our mind.
Yeah. No, I think it's interesting because I'm just, I think anyone listening, myself included, listening to you, reflects on what are those things that would fall into their own starter, appetizer, their own entree, their own dessert, the big things that would be on their dopamine menu. And it's a really interesting exercise because it makes you sort of put a name and write down things that have actually given you that value in your life. You kind of maybe instinctively know, but to actually put it down and to be able to read it and then go get it from time to time, order off the menu, I think is a really interesting exercise.
And I think especially sometimes when we feel things in the extreme, it's almost easier to develop strategies around it because we need it, right? It's like, life's hitting us over the head and saying, hey, pay attention to this because something's not working for you. But when it's a little bit like just below the threshold, it's almost easy to miss what's happening and then wonder why we feel just in this state of like just not feeling well, right? And whether it's feeling bored or unsatisfied or low-grade depression, like that's almost harder in some ways to then actually proactively address because it's not hitting you over the face, with it. And I think if you know your tendencies and the patterns around that, you can then say, okay, during this time of year, if you know you have a history of seasonal affective disorder, you can then kind of sprinkle little things throughout your day and your week that just add little bits of dopamine. Even just like adding some spice to your food can be a nice dopamine hit, right? If you like some spicy food, because it actually does show when that spicy food can actually increase dopamine.
Yeah, I love that. I think just being intentional about this, I almost describe it as a little bit of a state of fog, but I imagine people have their own adjectives for it. But these last couple of weeks in particular, I think it's been just kids have not gone to school for a couple of days because of snow days, and it's just, which I love having my kids around, don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying everything feels a little unsettled. It's just a little foggy, and the idea that you could add a little spice to your food, that I could do what I did before doing this interview with you, go outside and just stick my face in the sun for a bit and breathe in nature for a while. I wouldn't have been as intentional about that in the past. I know that it feels good, but like, you have to eat. So you order off the menu. That's the thing you have to do. You can't not eat. The idea that you need dopamine and that you should be able to order your dopamine off a menu in the way that you sort of laid it out, I think it's a really interesting exercise. It's something that I'm going to do.
Because I think especially when, as someone with ADHD, there's definitely this tendency to overvalue our now self and discount our future self, what neuropsychologists will call temporal discounting, right? And so many of the strategies that I put into place are really designed to be considerate of my future self.
And that's what the dopamine menu does for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Can you just spend a couple minutes talking us through it? Like, how would I start?
Sure. So what you'd want to do is, I use Canva, which is a pretty user-friendly graphic design thing, but you can use paper and pens and pencils, whatever kind of speaks to you from a creation standpoint. And so I have, break it up like a regular menu, appetizers, entrees, desserts, specials. And so you want to sort of decide like the format that you want to actually use. And then, so the next thing you want to do is kind of identify. So I would say put as much on the menu as you want to and as you can. Also recognize that, not all items are going to be available. You want to have it highly flexible. You want it to be easy to engage with. One of the things too, I think is really important is to have it easily accessible, whether it's like posted on your fridge or you have it like you laminate it and put it on your desk, or even like save it as the lock screen or your wallpaper on your computer. So you're regularly seeing this, but make it your own. Like I've seen so many different sort of variations of this. I've seen where people added like spice levels, as you see that on menus sometimes, as and that can mean whatever you want it to mean. That can mean like how like, easy or challenging it might be. It could be how rewarding it is.
So writing it down, but then also this what the objective value is, or how rewarding it might be.
Yeah. So let's say I'm sure there's lots of people listening who they have that guitar at home that's just collecting dust, and they regularly think about, I wish I was playing more guitar. Okay, well, what if you put the guitar right next to the couch where you normally just turn the TV on, right? What if you actually put the remote to the TV where the guitar usually is, so you actually put an effort to go turn the TV on, and it's actually just easier to play the guitar. Like things like that. So set up your space. If you want to do more journaling, because that's good, you find dopamine in that. Like, make sure your journal is easily accessible and you have pens that you like to use, right? And then the other thing is make it visually appealing. And even putting in reminders in your calendar. Say, hey, have you looked at your dopamine menu in a while? It's a very common thing with ADHD is like we have these tools or strategies and then we forget to use the tools or strategies, right? So I'll put in questions in my calendar all the time and says, hey, are you still doing this?
Right.
Because I've learned that, I'll discover the strategy. It's working great. And then I'm like, I have no idea when I stopped doing that. Right. So it's like, I have these sort of safety nets that I create for my future self.
You, on the podcast, you share a lot of stories of people who overcome challenges. Are there particular ones that really jump out at you?
Oh man, there's so many. It's like, I have 540 some episodes. I was like, I
saw that. You've been doing this for a while.
It's funny. When I first started the podcast, it was like, I didn't have a grand master plan for this podcast. I didn't think that I was going to actually start a whole side business, which became my coaching business. And so when I started my podcast, it was a solo show. I was just sharing sort of tips and strategies. And then I got an email from a listener who sent this really, really long email saying that they were basically like homeless in their car, struggling with alcoholism, and they stumbled upon my podcast somehow and forgot that they were diagnosed with ADHD when they were younger. And as a result of like remembering that they had ADHD, they checked themselves into rehab and like basically changed their life as a result. And so I got this email and it was just like, oh, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. Cause that knowing you're having that kind of impact. So I emailed him like, hey, could we get a check-in just to like, so I could put this on the tail end of the episode. This turned out into an hour-long conversation, which turned into my first interview. And after that, I was like, oh, interviews are absolutely the way to go. Like I just realized I was struggling with every week to plan an outline of what I was going to talk about. And I'm like, oh, I'm way better at being responsive versus like planning. And I think I'm a good interviewer and I'm a curious person. So like that was one that was really impactful for me.
How was the person doing? What was the check-in like?
Good. Like he's kind of getting life back on track.
Well, we really appreciate you making some time for us and for all the good you're putting out in the world. You're helping a lot of people.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, thank you. And thanks for your interest, and you're a great interviewer. Thank you.